Hello, I am Rick Bauer. On the socials, I am Sitecordial. Today, I wanted to give you a quick overview and some of my favorite features of Sitecore Path Analyzer. So let's dig in. First of all, I'm just going to give you a high-level overview. What you're seeing right now on screen is the radial view. You can use your scroll wheel on your mouse to zoom in, zoom out, or click and be able to drag this thing around. What this is a representation of is your traffic, and it is literally from internet through to different pages, and these different paths are showing, and they can bounce back and forth between different pages. It can be like home page to your, some sort of product page back to the home page, etc. But it's showing most popular paths by your users. You can click on these and you'll start to see exactly the paths on the right hand side, and you'll see that highlighted. You can actually turn on tagging to be able to see those paths. And once you have a path clicked, you'll get a little more rich data here. So you'll see basically the visits, the value per visit. This is also important that you have your engagement value scoring and your goals set up ahead of time, those prerequisites that I've talked about in earlier videos. If you don't have that set up, this Path Analyzer does not look like this at all. I mean, it's pretty much the same size dots and gray dots at that. If you open this key here, you'll see a legend. The size of the dot is your value. The width of the path is the visits. And the, by the way, this little gray, darker gray color is the same thing as the width. It's basically a way to quickly visualize if you start getting down to thin paths. You can see that this one has a little more traffic than these thinner ones, etc. But it's just a way to quickly visualize the width. It's more of a visit indicator. And then the color is the value per visit. So again, if you didn't have any engagement value set up, you wouldn't know the actual value per visit, which this has 20.17 engagement value points on this item for this time frame. So it's really your traffic. Again, there's different ways to look at this. I can certainly thin this down, and I'll show you that in a second, but I can look at a radial view. The radial view has the ability to show a little more detail in nodes just because of the model. Vertical is another way to look at it. There's some fancy animation to wow your friends. You can do top down, you can do horizontal. This is probably a little more what people are used to that use GA, that horizontal view. But this is still a lot of data. So one of the things I wanted to show you, first of all, is the way to parse this down a little bit. So let me go back to radial just so you can see all of this and just the amount of data. So here's a lot. That's a lot to look at. It's a lot to figure out. So let's start right here with this filter control. And I'm going to start actually down at the metrics filter. This is a really easy way to quickly do a drag slider and say, hey, you know what? Let's get rid of the lower value per visit pages. I just want to get to there, and I'll apply that, and now watch as my data thins out and becomes way more usable. So now I can see the higher value per visit pages. You'll see a lot of green. If the dot is red here and green here, basically it's referring to the previous, it's kind of relational to the previous node. So this path here is less value than this path here as it relates to the previous node. So once you get here, you'll see that this path is less productive than these. So it's just that, one step backwards, and you can start to see which ones are more valuable. This is a great way to look at, for example, I could see which paths are performing very well. Here's a straight shot that's looking pretty solid. My value per visit is great. I may want to replicate this and try and work on other pages to look like this. What other pages do I work on? Well, how about this one? How about this path, and see what's going wrong here? What is the downfall? Why is the value being lowered? Now, some of that could be in your setup. Some of it could be the way the goals are placed. Some of it might be some technology that you have to rethink. But given all things being set up right, it's a great way to see, hey, you know what? We're losing value from our customers on this path. Maybe we should look at a content test. So powerful way to start to look at that. Again, I can switch this out. It gets a little cleaner when looking at it from different views. This makes it certainly way more manageable to click through different paths and start to see that structure. Okay, so that's my metrics filter. I can obviously do I can filter out to only show higher value visit pages. I can do visit count. I can do only lower value pages just to see what that traffic looks like, exit value potential, etc. So I can work with that. I also have this path filter. Let's just leave this alone right now, and I'm going to click on a path. And let's see what we got here. Appliances, we'll say set as filter. And let me see if I can clean this out a little bit. All right, so I'm just going to simplify this down to gaming. Because I want to be able to apply this filter. So I've got this down to this one gaming page. I'm going to hit apply on this. And now you'll see these blue dots, and this should all be gaming. So this is basically showing any paths that include this one page. So this is just a quick simplified example to show you what this can do by setting path filters. I can set these here by clicking on different paths and applying them, and I can save them as my own to be able to reference later. So I'm going to reset this, clear all applied filters. But this is, between the path filter and being able to specify specific paths, which can include goals, it can include outcomes, it can include pages, obviously, and then this metrics filter that allows you to basically weed out some of the traffic so you can start to look at your data clean. It's just a helpful tool to be able to parse out your data differently. Next one I want to show you here is just a different view that I find very helpful. So I've showed you that there's the radial, vertical, horizontal. But another way to look at your data that I find very helpful is the table view. And this is helpful in a number of ways. First of all, it's just clean. It's much like a spreadsheet or just columns. It goes out, if I remember correctly, about 20 columns is the max. Plenty long in most paths and most user journeys. But the column here on the right is where this becomes useful. So I can basically sort by value per visit, value, and visits on a very familiar format. So I could basically say, resort this from low value visits, and I can just start to look from bottom up of what that looks like. I can sort by value, and this is going to readjust. The animation is kind of fun. I can reverse this and look at only low value and scroll down and see where that starts to pick up, for example, and just be able to start to look at my paths in different ways. Again, this is also exportable. Download a CSV, throw it into Excel, capture it to Power BI, parse it against other data. If you have different platforms gathering data, you can utilize this as a way to be able to build out those data models, those more complex data models. So very, very cool way to be able to just easily look at data in a structured spreadsheet-like format. So that's the table view. Okay, now I want to show you the dashboard view. Very helpful here. This is something that obviously could be customized and built out if you want to add in other reporting and visualization. Just like anything within Sitecore, it can be customized to suit. But there is some stuff that you can do out of the box that is handy. The main one that I want to show you here is, let's say, so this is a system default of path of the highest exit value category. It's just showing it's always here. That can be changed out again. That's over the date range. But let's say I go in and create a path here, and I save this as a funnel, for example. Just going to let this render for a second. It's going to take 1 second. There should be some information that shows up here. There we go. Funnel's been saved. There goes the process. Boop. Okay. So now under funnels, so that'll show up in a little bit. I've got one here available, so excuse me while I food network this, but click on a test funnel. There's my test funnel. I hit this star. Now, because this is a funnel I always want available, now on my dashboard, there's my test funnel. So handy way to be able to just quickly have a specific funnel. Say I'm in charge of a specific product or a specific service, and that is my responsibility. I can set up a specific funnel for a regular journey that my customers are taking, and say I launch a campaign. Great way to create a funnel and monitor that campaign and your expected traffic on that, and have that funnel available here to look at. So nice way to use the dashboard, handy. Another favorite tool that I'll show you, I'll use to transition into a discussion here, but you'll see here on my maps, this is a place where I can make custom maps, which I'm about to demonstrate. But just to demonstrate one more favoriting tool, you'll see it already. I have one here. I have a goal map favorited. So if there's certain maps that I always want to model my data against, again, there's pages and such, I can click on that and that'll show up under my favorites. So I could basically close all this up and just have my favorites, and that's all I ever have to worry about. I don't have to dig down into the default maps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, let's talk about these maps. Again, all of this data is just literally a model. It's not changing your data. It's looking at your data and stored in Sitecore, stored in XDB. And this visualization tool is great, and in the fact that I can look by date, I can filter out as I showed you, but I can also look by traffic type to quite a degree. So right now we're looking at all visits. I could do returning visits and apply that, and it's going to thin my data down a little bit, not too much, because people are coming back to this demo site. I could look by language. I could look by a goal. So say I want to look by my demo goal, and say okay. And very simple, very clean. It's just one major path, one not so major path. So that's just looking at it by a goal. I could look at it by a campaign. So I have a little computers campaign set up here, and I could see my traffic basically looking at it by that campaign and be able to click through and start to see what's performing well, going from to the computer page to the newsletter, which is probably the newsletter sign up page, etc. I can look by channel. This is great. Imagine being able to say, let's look at all my paid search traffic. Very good way to start to see this. And if I start clicking on these, I'll see my different pages here, that people are coming through from different channels. Actually, in this case, is the paid search channel. And then there's experience maps. I'm going to show you these. These are a way to basically, one useful way that I like it is to look by persona or pattern type. We'll build one of those out in a second. So again, very useful way of trimming down the data to what you want to look at. So if I've got now control over not only how it looks, I have the ability to look at the filtered by metric and by a path. I have certainly date range. There's last days, quick views there. You'll see little grayed out days where there might not be data. You may not have that. You might have data every day. So it'll say dates missing data. It's even showing in that table right there. But then you have the control over these maps. So let's look at where we can control those. All right, so I am in the marketing control panel, and you'll see here under Path Analyzer, I already have this opened up. I have my maps, my default maps, and my global maps. So this looks very familiar. This looks just like the drop-down that we were looking at in the Path Analyzer, because it is the exact same data. You're looking at the exact same items. In here, I can create a goal map. So that's as simple as right-clicking, insert goal map. Say OK. There we go. It's got my name. I could provide some, real plain English instructions. I can reverse this, so it's basically how the data models. It's basically, is it all coming to or going from the goal? It's a nice way to be able to visualize differently. I would just say try it out, see the way you like it. Here, I would pick my target goal. I'm just going to choose login. And then here, I'm just going to basically duplicate that, and I'm going to say goal. I could, add some more complexity to this if I wanted to, but I think for simplicity's sake, I just keep them clean and say goal. So now my target goal and this rule align. I'm going to keep this as a page map. The experience map will show in a second. Save this. And now the key is to look over here on your gutter on the left-hand side. There's a little clock basically saying this is initializing. It takes some time. I usually give it 24 hours. There are ways to expedite this with your administrator deploying the map early, but just let it initialize, and then you'll be able to start looking at that data and see it available in the Path Analyzer. By the way, while I'm here, if you've never right-clicked in this gutter, there are a lot of options to show and hide some little tips. Just a little bonus thought there. If you haven't done that, It's nothing obvious because it doesn't tell you to do it, but just right click in that gutter and you should get this menu. You can start to check items that you want to have an icon show up in this gutter to alert you of certain maybe workflow states or broken links, etc. So that's building a goal map. I could do the same thing with a campaign. I can do the same thing with an experience map, and this was that different type of map I wanted to show you. In this case, I would basically either right click or I could click on the experience map there, and I'll say insert experience map. We'll call it training again. And now I have my real world description. Click on the editor to throw that in there, but here I have different options. Now, do I want to show the channel? Do I want to show campaigns? Do I want to show all pages or just entry and exit or just page events? Do I want to show the goals or goal with value or outcomes? All of these things become nodes in that path tree. So if you want to simplify, you certainly can. You could just basically say, you know what, I just want entry exit pages. I don't know. You can figure that out, but I mean, you can basically say or include all the goals, etc. So I can kind of build this how I want. Where this gets really fun is I will go into this scope and I can say edit rule. So in this case, I'm going to pick a persona, or in this case a pattern. I'll add this rule down here from the specific profile. I'll pick fitness and trainers. And I will choose the pattern that comes from that group, and that will be, let's do Richard Simmons, and say OK. So now I basically save this, let it initialize and deploy, and when I go back into my Path Analyzer, this will ultimately be available for me to look at my traffic based on that persona, based on that pattern. So you will see initially, so this is that training map I just made for goals. It's not available yet. It will become available in time. And my experience map also not available yet. It needs to be deployed. Again, talk to your admin if you want to push the deployment. There is a way of doing that through a Path Analyzer admin page, but in due time it'll get there. But it's basically building out the data for you based on historic and up to current data to be able to look at your path different. Okay, so let's just recap. We looked at the ability to change your data model and the visualization if you want, including dashboard, a very quick reference with a favorite that you can add in there to be able to track that specific funnel. The table view, nice spreadsheet, very clean way of looking at your data and be able to sort it visually easily. The way to clean out and trim down your data with these sliders and being able to, only show me higher value per visit, only show lower value pages overall, etc. Just some quick wins on being able to clean up and visualize your data easier. Certainly your calendar and the way to work with custom paths and be able to parse the data how you need to be able to make your decisions. Again, all of this does require the prerequisites of goals, or it does not look as pretty. It just looks gray and bland, and we want your data to be more powerful. Thank you again. My name is Rick Bauer. You can follow me on Twitter at Sitecordial. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and share this video. I appreciate it. This has been Sitecore Path Analyzer and some of my favorite features within it. I hope this has been helpful. Cheers.